I'm gonna put you all here so I can see you. Sorry for starting a few minutes late. I had this goal today. It's like today you are going to let's see. So this is the plan that never works, okay? But the plan was to, there you go. Come on, focus. All right. So that 4 up there, it's a 4 a.m. Didn't wake up at 4 a.m. That workout at 5 didn't work out because I woke up at 6. And so I wanted to record 2 videos at 6 a.m. in the morning, YouTube videos. I started at 7 to start the class. At 7:52, I started recording the YouTube videos. I recorded one or half, and now we're starting the class, and then it's the rest of the day. I've got to say, the YouTube video, we'll see how it goes when they edit it. But at least I did one. Now let's start. Today I wanted to talk about something that's really fun to use, but then sometimes I have a little bit of a hard time placing it in the track. And I'm talking about how to mix or how to... So we've got this pulsing bass, right? And it sounds like this. And it sounds fun and all, and it's fun, very easy to use when you're composing because you just hit one note and you've got a dun, 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 thing. It sounds so good. But what do we do with it? It's like, sounds good. Do we need to do anything? In context? Is the guy here? Without the plugins? So by passing back and forth, and so let's see. Let's talk about it, and then we'll talk about bass. Where's my bass? Here. Say it's sort of like a similar thing. It's like a typical Fender electric bass. So let's see what we do with these things. So let's go back to, let's start with the pulsing synth bass, and then we'll do the electric bass. So what are they doing? What are they doing here in the mix? It's kind of like it's adding energy. It's not sort of like the main instrument, sort of like bubbling underneath the track, and it's adding energy and support. But it's a little bit anemic, in my opinion, when before the processing. Sounds like this. And it works, but it feels a little bit anemic. So what do we need to do here? In my opinion, I think we need to add a little bit of presence, a little bit of aggression, making a little bit more interesting. So the first thing that I did here is I added a little bit, I added this black box. Where are you? Okay, here. Black box. So this guy here, and I bypass this plugin. This basically is an emulation of a hardware device that sort of that brings back the tube's sound, the tube's warmth, the tube's saturation that we love so much. That these solid state components don't have as much. So as you can see here in this plugin, it has sort of like 2 sections. It has the pentode and it has the triode. And this is an emulation of that hardware device. And what's trying to bring back is that warmth and saturation of the tubes type of sound. Now we've got these 2 sections, the pentode and triode. You can think of it as the pentode kind of like affecting the low frequencies, and the triode for the high frequencies. And then you can add more or less saturation. You can do all these things. I'm not gonna get too much into the configuration, how you've got presets, but you can dial all these things. But essentially, let's see before and after bypass. So bypass now. And you can see it's subtle, but you can see how it adds a little bit of that, a little bit of saturation and interest, and to this. It's similar to all these plugins that we've seen, the Kramers, the Kramers master tapes of the world, the what else, the J37s, the analog channels, the Studer 800s, all these things that add a little bit of that quality and that tone and that analog quality, or that tape quality, or that tubes quality, just adds a little bit of interest to the sound, just to make it sound a little bit more analog. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, we said it needs a little bit of presence and intensity. That we're gonna gain with a little bit of percussion. At the end of the day, this is sort of like a rhythmic instrument, percussive instrument. It's not like the acoustic melodic instrument. So a little bit of percussion. In this case, I added the API 2500. This is from Waves. I think UAD has another emulation of this one. It's a very popular compressor for rock, but I like it very much for this type of sounds. So just a touch of compression. I'm not gonna go into it, but before and after, I'm gonna start by passed. You see, you can see how it's compressing a little bit. Maybe a tad too much at the beginning. So usually, for this type of instruments, I'll have them compressing 1 to 3 dBs max, and then I'm gonna bring it up. The gain, it's either an auto or the gain, I'm gonna bring it up to 3 dBs, and that is what adds that presence, or that intensity. So without, with, without, with, and the two plugins bypassed with the plugins, without, with. And as you can see, that's presence and intensity. Let's see this in context with the track. What you will see is that when I bypass the plugins, all of a sudden you don't hear it that much, and you start hearing more of the bass, like this guy here. And when I activate the plugins, you start hearing all that, the grit and that quality, the high frequencies and of these. And when I bypass it, you're gonna see how you lose it. Okay, how you lose the sound, the presence. All right, let's in context with the plugins active. So I'm gonna start active, and then I'm gonna bypass them. So you see it's down there. One more time. Not active. Active. So it's there. It's not the main instrument. It's not super loud. It's just there underneath, adding support bubbling underneath the track. But it's important. It's adding support and also energy, and moves the track forward. It's kind of like the motor of the track as well. So it's important that sits well in the mix. All right. So that is the first one of the pulses. The other one is an electric bass. Let's talk about this one. So this bluish one here, and let's see. I'm gonna bypass the instruments. I'm gonna take a listen to this guy. So to me, it sounds well already. It's a good sample, I guess. This is Trillian, Spectrasonics Trillian, and it's a Fender electric bass staccato. No. But maybe we can enhance a little bit of that growl and grit of that Fender electric bass that's so fun to hear, and I think that is gonna make it work better in the context of this track. Which what we need here is a little bit more energy and aggression. It's an kind of like it's action type of thing, and so we're gonna see if we can do that. So the first thing that we're gonna do is that we've done this several times. This is Kramer. So without, with, without, with. Very subtle. I doubt that you can hear the difference through Zoom, but again, what it does, it just adds a little bit of interest. It widens the sound a little bit. In this one in particular, it adds a little bit of that analog tape character to the sound. Just adds a little bit of interest in a pleasant way that we like. Here's where the magic happens. In this case, in particular, this is the mix hub. It's basically a plugin that has two things, has an EQ and the compressor in one plugin. This one actually is going to lift it up quite a bit without, with, and now you should be able to hear the difference, this one. And as you can see, I'm bypassing things when, so we got, right? Usually I won't bypass the change of a note. I'm not gonna bypass it here because it's two different notes, so they are already gonna sound different. I usually bypass at the middle of the same note type of thing, and it works best when it's a long note type of thing, bypassing it there because it's easier to hear the difference. So don't bypass it at the end of a phrase, the beginning of a phrase. Don't do that. So what I'm trying to do is that bypassing towards the middle. Otherwise, sometimes like to the next note, and then it's like, oh yeah, here's the difference. No, just another string maybe, and then the quality of the sound is different, not because of the bypassing of the plugin or the activating of the plugin, but because it's just a different string or different note. So without. Again, without bypassing towards the middle. So it's again all that grit and growl of that Fender bass that we like so much, just enhancing that part. One more time, without. So that's what we're doing. But it's basically a lot of EQ and then a little bit of compression. So we've got the EQ here. The kicker is the one that's making the biggest difference is 9 dBs plus 9 dBs at about 5K. It's more common to have this sort of like more EQ for the rhythmical instruments, and we usually keep it a little bit more subtle for the acoustic melodic instruments, for the strings, for brass. In general, it's subtle there. For the rhythmical instruments, percussion, things like this, you can be a little bit more aggressive, and we're being aggressive here. Then 9 at 3. At 3K, and then just attach at here 2.5, and that's basically it. Just adding that brightness and grabbing that grip and growl of this bass. That's what's making the biggest difference. And then adding a little bit of let me bypass the compression and just hear the difference with EQ without with, one time, without, with. So that's making a big difference. And now we're gonna go for the compression, and look at this, how much we're compressing. So almost nothing. If I bring down the threshold, what's going on? it starts compressing a little bit. I'm almost not compressing, and the reason why I'm not it's not compressing is because there are louder notes later on that I set the threshold here. Just when it is a little bit of compression, it does compress. It has the gain in auto, so the more I compress, the more the output goes up, the gain. See? But it sits here at around -5 or something like this, and so once in a while it compresses a little bit. So without the compression, without, with just a little bit of added presence with bypassing the plugin. And that's it. And in context, both of them, the Kramer does a little bit, but the one that makes the biggest difference is the mix hub with the EQ and a little bit of compression, and that's it. In context, and then bypassing all the plugins. And that's it. Also, worth mentioning a little bit of panning. Just here. There we go. Just a little bit of panning. You can see like plus minus 80 kind of thing. Just concentrating, concentrating the bass a little bit more towards the middle. And that's it, and we don't need that much information on the sides. It's a bass instrument, it's pulsing bass. I like to usually have the strings there, or the instrument that open the sound a lot in terms of panning and width. And I like to have a space for the strings, for the staccato strings especially. If you see, let's see if we can do this. If you see this guy here, you're gonna see. Starting here, see the strings. These are the strings all the way to the left. Close a little bit, all the way to the left, all the way to the left, almost. So this is the highest strings. Then the lowest strings all the way to the right. Not all the way to, but it's wide and closing a little bit the right channel, and the right channel is all closing a little bit the left channel, and the right channel is all the way to the left. So these are strings. They are. The dominant channel is always, or almost always, 100% to that dominant side. But then when we get to the woodwinds, closing them a little bit, the horns still a lot, like pretty much, pretty, like we could be here at like 100% left. It's more like 80 something. But see, the only instruments that are 100% one of the sides are the strings. And then the same thing for percussion, same thing. The rule is kind of like I never go beyond 75 when it comes to percussion. It helps adding a little bit of presence and also creating a space for the other instruments, especially for like cinematic epic percussion. And the same thing here when we get here to the electric bass. Can we just see the screen? Yes. When we get here to the electric bass, same thing. Close a little bit. The punches, kicks, the pulses, close a little bit. These other guys still haven't mixed them. That's why they're 100% open left and right. But that's it. All right. Yeah, I think we're done. One more time in context. Without, with, talking about this guy here. Without, with. It's funny how that, that reaching for those high frequencies to add a little bit of grit and growl to this kind of like, so we can hear a little bit of that Fender, staccato pulsing type of thing that we like so much, actually helps us as we are listening to this kind of like feel a little bit more of the low pulse as well. It's like by being able to it's easier for us to as the listener to identify this pulse. Then we kind of like hear a little bit more of the like the lowest end of that instrument as well. Like without it, look at this. Obviously the low frequencies are there, but we don't hear them that much because it's like it's harder for us to recognize that pulse because we don't have that part of the sound that opens the sound, that adds the clarity, that makes it easy for us to identify it. But then when we add a little bit of that clarity to the sound, bypassed. And it's also partially because, well, because we're compressing, adding a little bit of gain, and that adds presence to the sound as well. So obviously it's like, well, it's louder, dude. That's why we hear it. Yes, that's partially part of it as well. That's it. That's what you do. Questions. That is what you do with pulses and all that. Just a little bit sometimes to analog saturation or tube saturation or something that sometimes it's a little bit anemic. Just adding a little bit of that analog quality to the sound, either with tape or tubes or an analog channel, something like this. That adds that character. And then usually they are gonna need a little bit of intensity or something like this. So a little bit of compression. Sometimes we need to enhance some part of the sound that add a little bit of that grit. A little bit of EQ. And that's pretty much it. Close a little bit because we don't need them to sound too wide. And especially, then I've got other pulses that I still haven't mixed, but especially these ones kind of like mid-low kind of thing, we don't need them wide. And in cinematic music, sometimes I get these questions like this for the subsonic, enhancing the subsonic frequencies, and it's an stereo bass, and it's just an LFE effect kind of thing, and it's just adding some more low frequencies to those instruments that need more low frequencies. Typically, those are gonna be a mono bass because subsonic frequencies usually are mono. But in film music, cinematic music, those low subsonic frequencies, big epic sub bombs and things like this, they're typically a stereo, and it's okay. And sometimes they even have reverb, or a lot of room component. It's okay, but at the same time, we don't need them super wide. Close them a little bit. Questions?
Okay, for today we don't have any question. We have from yesterday. Michael asked, yesterday was Marc adding audio fluctuations in addition to MIDI fluctuations?
Yes.
Because we are mixing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on top of that. On top, just more of it, and just make it sound. You can always see that this the mixing is like, we are done. It sounds awesome, and it's like this extra layer of mixing that makes it sound even better. It's like, but it's just mixing is when we're composing, we're making it sound outstanding. But when we are mixing, we're focusing on different things, like mentally. Like when we're composing, you can focus on the composing, the music side of things, and the mixing, the balance and all that. But when you're mixing, you're just focusing on mixing, and you can do things that you can't do when you are composing, because you're using the sound in a different way. Using sound as audio, and you're gonna focusing on that mixing side of things, on the sonic side of things, not in the musical side of things as much. That being said, when you are composing, you're always paying attention to the composing 80% and a little bit of mixing, balance and all that 20%. When you are mixing, you're focusing on the mixing sonic things, sonic part 80%, but it still is like always tied to the composition. What does this piece need? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, next question.
Perfect. We have two more questions of yesterday. The first one is from Art, and he says that he's still having a little issue with balancing the Berlin woodwinds in the template, balancing them in the template. They are recorded much softer than other libraries. It's a continuation of the last chat of last week.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, actually, I'm doing a series of videos on comparing the CSW with Berlin woodwinds, and I'm having a little bit of that problem. And to me, it's just bring so two things: bring them up in volume or bring them down. It's just whatever, like whichever library sounds louder or softer, just bringing them down. And but then sometimes it feels like you don't find the right volume or the right spot, the right balance, the right place. And sometimes it's also because it's a different room, and then you have to play around with the mics to. And to me, the problem is with CSW, with Cinematic Studio Woodwinds. In fact, it's like too present, too close, and I have to, get rid of the mix that they give you, and then go with the room and wide mics, like the room and the Deca tree and the whites, and a little bit of the surround, and that doubles the amount of RAM because it's just doubles the amount of samples that I have to deal with. But that's what it takes to me to find. So what I would say is, start with the Deca tree, with the room mics. Break them up, and that's the room sound. And that at least is gonna put your instruments in a similar room as every other room that you have. So the Deca tree, that's where the woodwinds shoots, like that's the orchestral woodwinds sound. That's what you want. Then you can create other mixes. Like if you go for a little bit more like a smaller woodwind sound, then you can add a little bit of the spot mics and things like this. But generally, you won't need that for an orchestral, cinematic sound type of context where the woodwinds sound a little bit farther away. That's the type of sound. They are actually behind the strings. That's quite far from the mics. That's far, and so that is the sound. You're gonna hear a lot of room, and then try and find the right volume.
Mark, you don't mind me chiming in, do you?
No, please.
Okay. What I found was I was working with, it was an alto flute. So yeah, I mean, how much projection can you get? But even within the flute section, it was getting lost. And I had everything all the way up, and my controller was like close to the top. And if I wanted to do a crescendo, forget it, so there was nowhere to go. I don't know what the other answers are.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I know that the alto flute is not exactly, projecting.
No, yeah, it's still. But if you're like, well, I know how this should sound. The balance, I know the balance, and it's not getting there. What technically what you wanna do is Cubase or Logic?
Logic.
Okay, just whenever you have. Whenever you've reached it's like, okay, I brought this up and I can't bring this up any farther. Just reach for the gain, right? And just add. Usually Logic and Cubase will have gain. You have up to like 50 dBs of headroom that you can bring up, and that's it. If you've got a library or instrument that sounds lower, just you have two solutions. Solution number one, bringing down everything else and then compensating with gain in the master bass, or maximizing or bringing up the volume of the master bass at the end, like the master track, the master output at the end, not the master bass but the master output. Solution number one, bring down everything else. Or solution number two, everything sounds good, but the alto flute sounds too soft. Just bring up the volume. If you've brought up the volume of the fader all the way up, which is the output of that track, then bring up the input, which is the gain. Bring up the input as much as you need to. That's it. But sometimes if you the second option, if you start like the alto flute doesn't sound loud enough, I'm gonna bring it up. And at some point it's like, oh, this clarinet or this horns library sounds very soft. They have to bring it up. By bringing up, you start at some point you're going to overload the master bass, the master output track. And then I generally prefer to I've got this instrument that doesn't sound loud enough. Let me just select all my tracks except for this one, bring them down by 3 dB, 6 dB, whatever it needs. And then it's like, oh, cool, now everything sounds a little bit too soft. Let me just go to the master track and bring it up in volume, or add a maximizer plugin or some whatever it needs, or just bring up the volume of the speakers. That's it. That's it. My template, everything is at minus 10, minus 12, minus 18s, minus 20s, minus a lot. And then when you see, like if I'm mixing here and I truly bring this down, this is how all the tracks look. Like this is horns. This is the loud part. Look at this. This is the loud part. Here. Here. So this is the loud part, and if we look at, if we look here, you haven't seen it. The So the loudest note of the piece, I would say, this instrument has a very thick 12 horns sound, minus 16 dBs of, and so everything is very, very, very soft. See, but I don't care because there's not staging. There's no noise, so everything is very, very, very soft, and I don't care. The only I like when I bring this here. What I like to do is, make this thicker so I know where the sound is. So that's one thing that I do. But that's just zooming the waveform. That's not making it louder or anything like that. So that's one thing. The only problem that this can present is when you are using some sort of like dynamics plugin, or when you're using a plugin which the input of that plugin is important to the quality of the sound, like tape saturation. Tape saturation, depending on the, if you are to get more of the tape saturation, the sound, the amount, it has to get close to 0 analog. And so sometimes I have to bring up the gain of that plugin and bring down the output to make sure that the level inside the plugin, because it's an analog emulation, is the right level, so I get the tone or the quality of the sound that I want. So that is the only thing when it can be a problem, that the levels are so low. But by having all these levels so low, if I'm like, I've got this alto flute here, and I've got this 8 trombones section here, I'm gonna make the alto flute sound louder than the trombones triple forte. I can do that just with volume because I've got a lot of headroom. So that's what I do. Everything's super low, and whenever I've got a library that sounds super soft, I have so much headroom. Just bring it up in gain or just the fader. Was that helpful? Did that answer
Yes.
your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or do one
Right.
Anthony that and use 4 bass flutes, and 4 of them, that'll solve the problem.
Exactly. Oh man. All right, cool.
Okay, we have another question. It's a little bit off topic, but it's from Luca Marcini, and he asked about how to register his music, copyright his music. If you can give an advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Luca. Usually the way it works for. So there are 2 levels. You've got the register the music and then copyright. The copyright, I don't do it, because just by writing your music, theoretically you are protected already. I register my music with BMI, meaning when I'm done composing for a movie, I do the cue sheet, I submit the cue sheet to BMI, and that is the music is registered, and I'm gonna collect royalties. They're gonna pay me each time that movie, shows. That's basically it. But in terms of copyright, you can copyright your music, and it's advised that you copyright your music. I generally don't don't bother. You're more than protected. In my opinion, you're more than protected these days. Like if you upload your music to library music, audio jungle, it's all, you know, the waveform is registered. If someone uses your music, don't worry. YouTube knows, Audio Jungle knows, Netflix knows, BMI knows, everyone knows, because these days it's everything digitally printed and signed. And so when you register your music, like if you're working with a like Audio Jungle or something like this, when you upload your music, they have all the systems in place. So if someone uses the music, YouTube is gonna let them know, and they're gonna have a copyright issue. It's YouTube is going to demonetize your video, and they're gonna let you know. So it's very easy these days. You can't like 10 years ago you could download music and use it in a video and put it online and no big deal. But these days, if and even like cable TV, it's all digital. So what you can, like, if you wanna if you wanna see if your music has been used somewhere and you just wanna protect your music, you wanna try to find out if it was used somewhere and they didn't let you know, TuneSat. TuneSat. 1 second. I'm gonna bring this here. TuneSat. Use this. Let me see. Marc, Jovani. Sign in. Oops. No. Login. Yeah, logging in. There you go. And so basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna upload your tracks here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna load your tracks here, and it's gonna tell you. So this TuneSat is going to scan everything, like YouTube, all the network, all the all the channel, all the TV channels, all the networks, everything. And so you're gonna upload the music, and then it's gonna analyze. It's sort of like what's it called? Forgot the name. Ooh. Why did I forget the name? It's sort of like Shazam, right? Where how does Shazam work? Well, Shazam has the waveform analyzed, and when you are, oh, I like this song. What is this song? Right? It's like, why does Shazam recognize that song? Because it compares the waveform. So this guy does the same thing, and it's gonna analyze every channel, every TV channel, everything that goes online or cable or everything. And so if at some point they find like just 2 seconds of a waveform that is similar or matches your waveform, they're gonna let you know. So you can use this as well. And you can they've got different plans and all that. You can use depending on what plan you can upload as a number of tracks. What I do is, instead of I upload I use this not for protecting my music or just to find out, but to make more money. I upload my music here, like I'll do a movie. And I use the free plan. It just allows me, like, I don't know how many, maybe 30 or 100 tracks. And so what I do is, instead of uploading all the soundtracks or like the 30 or 40 tracks that I composed for that movie, what I do is I just upload 2 or 3, because if the movie airs or shows somewhere, I don't need the entire soundtrack, every track, every cue in that movie for this guy to catch it. I just need one. It's like if they aired the movie somewhere, they at some point you're gonna have this track and they're gonna let me know. I've used this, so I'm like, hey, BMI, my movie showed in this channel, like this TV channel in China, and I'm looking at the report and I didn't make any money. What's going on? Right? It's like, oh, we didn't catch that one. Sorry. And then it's like, okay, do your fucking job, BMI. No, I'm just kidding. It's like, but they do a great job. But sometimes they don't catch some of they don't see, like, for whatever reason. The way this works is just so surreal. But the way it's so old school. But the way this works is, let's say you do a movie. and you are hired by a production company. Production company hires you. You do a movie. They have a budget. They pay they pay the crew and the musician, post production. You get paid. Cool. All right, that's a production company. Then there's a distribution company, and that company is like, okay, the movie is done. Now let's sell it. Let's distribute this movie. Let's see if we can make this movie go in these channels. Let's see if we can sell it to Netflix. See if we can sell it to Amazon Prime. Let's see what we can do with this movie, and then distribute that movie. And the better the distribution company, the bigger the reach of the movie that you worked on, and the bigger the reach, the better. The more money you'll do. And so these days with Netflix, and that's a whole different discussion. But it's easier. Like if the way it works in Netflix and all these things, like they've got the statistics and all that. Depending on the views and the streams of your movie, then they pay the PRO, the BMI and all that. The BMI distributes all that to the composers and directors, etc. But when it comes to like TV, like standard like TV, if it goes to like a cable TV, like goes to I don't know Hallmark channel or channel like this, right, or Lifetime, whatever, then CNN, whatever it is, it's their responsibility, Lifetime channel or CNN, to let them know, to let BMI or ASCAP or Sky or who, hey, we had this we had this movie. We showed this movie on Saturday, 4 p.m. and here's the money, right? And then CNN or Lifetime Channel or Ion, whatever they pay, whoever they have to pay, the distribution, the BMI, ask whatever, right? And that's how it works. But if they don't say anything, ASCAP doesn't know, or BMI doesn't really know, or they don't really have the capacity to, there's not gonna be a guy watching each channel and taking notes of what's going on. It's not like that. So it's an agreement that they have, but it's the channel responsibility to share what they've used to the PRO, and so then they send the money and then you get paid. But it's not perfect, and it's not. So I like using this because it's an algorithm, it's a robot, and it tracks everything, it scans everything. I find it more reliable. But also it's have to put the work. There are companies that will do this for you. They'll use TuneSat or things like this, and will do this work for you. You're gonna send them all the tracks. They're gonna put them on TuneSat. You're gonna pay them a percentage of the royalties that they make. That they make you. So like, okay, usually you would do 10,000 a year in royalties. I'm gonna make you do I'm gonna double this for you just by being on top and claiming that to your PRO is like, hey, this and this and this and this did not get paid. Why? And then they put the time, and then you make maybe like a 50% more, 100% more, 20% more, whatever it is. The difference, whatever it is, they get a cut of a percentage of your royalties. So if you make 50,000 a year in royalties, they'll get like a 10% or 20% on top of the 20% or the 15% or the 12% that BMI or ASCAP or Sky already got because of processing fees. Fun, but just to to keep it short and sweet. I don't copyright my music. It's protected already these days, in my opinion, and I register my music, so I collect royalties. That's what I do. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Luca.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I think we're done. Are we done? Do we have more questions?
Yes. Art is asking. Art is asking again. Okay, he says, why don't the pros use something like that to monitor that?
The PR, I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. It's so old school. It's unbelievable. I don't know why they are so behind. It's PR in I'm super grateful to PROs. Like we make, it's making a living as a composer it's because of them that we can make a living. So they do a outstanding job. They do a lot, but but unions and PROs these days are a little bit, behind the curve. With COVID has changed so many things in terms of especially everything is moving to streaming. That is where all the media is being produced. So it's just at this moment, this is a part of a longer conversation. But there are so many things that need to change in terms of collecting the royalties, PROs, and union rules here in town. It's very controversial, and I'm not gonna get into this, but there are so many things that, in my opinion, need to change. There's a strike, I think in a couple of weeks or so. With against the union, because it's everything is a little bit messed up at the moment, and there are so many things that need to change, and they need to update. I mean, I don't know if they use something like this, but what I know is that there are many things that are not in my reports that I'm like, well, these things are missing. Why? And sometimes, like, there are some channels that just will reject paying. Like, I think CNN rejects paying. Don't quote me on that, but there are some channels that will reject paying BMI or ASCAP. And it's like, okay, then most of my shows are in CNN or whatever, or whatever channel. And then, well, I'm gonna move from ASCAP to BMI or from BMI to ASCAP because most of my shows go in that channel. And that channel rejects paying them. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, but it's just I guess it's our laziness as well. We could go and somehow we could go to that specific channel. It's like, well, you have to pay me, but no, we do everything through a PRO. Keeps everything more organized, but at the same time we are delegating all that work on a PRO, and then we just expect at the end of the quarter to receive that check. But they are doing their job as well. We pay a percentage of our royalties to them for them to do that work, but then we don't hold them accountable. And then when things change, we sort of like expect them to change accordingly to the changes of COVID and everything going from like regular theater and TV to streaming. The problem with the streaming is that TV, they did estimates like, okay, your movie showed at 2 p.m. and the estimate is like 500,000 people saw that, or the data shows that 500,000 people saw that, and so it's like, and then because of 500,000 people or 2 million people or 10 million people, then this is how much you get paid based on the number, based on the audience. Now with the streaming is different because like if you got like a B movie, like what I do, right? It's the same thing. It's like how many people saw that movie, and maybe it's like, well, 32. It's like, okay, you get paid 50 cents. It's like, oh, come on. And you're going from $400 to 50 cents, right? And it's, well, now if you have one of these main shows on Netflix, then you're going to get paid big because the numbers show it. So, I understand. I don't know. I just do music. I make sure to make as many royalties as possible. At some point, I had someone do this for me, that's it. Yeah, long conversation. We could have one entire chat. Anyway, we'll talk about this in another chat.
Okay, Marc. Tomorrow we are having Anne-Catherine Dern as a masterclass at 9 a.m. So we hope to see everyone there.
Exactly.
We'll be hosted by Tony Domenech as always. And see you tomorrow and see you next week, Marc.
Alrighty. Thanks for watching. I was gonna say thanks for being here. I hope it was useful. Have a great week, and I will see you next one. Bye bye. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.